Hello students, welcome back once again for the course of MBA Semester 3 Advertising Management. Today is our lecture number 28 and we are going to discuss about advertising budget and its methods. So, the objective of our today's session is help to understand the concept of advertising budget and its various methods so that we can formulate our advertisement as effective as possible and meet the advertising cost appropriately. So, the contents of our today's session are advertising budget, setting the advertising budget, approaches to advertising budget, and advertising budgeting methods. So we are going to start a discussion using the topic that is called as advertising budget. When we are talking about the advertising, okay, primarily we need to manage the media vehicles appropriately and reduce the cost of advertising. Here that advertising budget is one of the form of planning document that will be very essential in managing the overall advertising expenditure. So what will be the overall advertising expenditure that is going to be happen after choosing the appropriate media vehicles? So first of all, here we need to think about the determination of advertising expenditure. That advertising expenditure is nothing but the kind of expenses that we are making on placing the advertisement into the medium. So while we are preparing the document for formulating the advertising budget, we should have to take it into account. So what will be the amount of advertisement expenditure that we are going to incur on overall as an overall advertising expenses? So that document will be called as advertising budget. So there will be what called as a budgeting decision. That budgeting decision will be one of the very important decisions, primarily to place the different advertisement into different forms of medium and allocating the budget appropriately by means of using effective media planning and scheduling of activities. So budgeting decisions involve determining how much money will be spent on advertising and promotions each year and how the monies will be allocated. So in overall, here we need to manage our advertising activity in such a way we can produce the cost effective advertising and meet the advertising expenses by means of using some important decision making, and that is called as budgeting decisions. So in this budgeting decisions, that we are going to determine that how much money that is going to be allocated to place the advertisement or promotion, okay, throughout the year, okay, in different medium. While we are conducting that advertising budgeting decisions, so there will be primarily two major decisions that we taken into account. Establishing the size of the budget, so how much would be the overall advertising budget, and allocating the budget appropriately in the different media so that we can tap the that particular audience, targeted audiences, very effectively. Okay, that will be a key questions while defining the overall advertising budget. So that primarily we need to think. Generally, while preparation of the advertising budget, okay, here we do need to consider some important questions in our mind. So budgeting is the kind of activity that each and every individual organization and the advertising companies that they are producing for their clients. So what considerations should be there in practice, okay, while preparing the advertising budget? So first of all, what will be the advertising objective? For what purpose the companies are going to advertise. So here we need to think about our marketing communication as well as the message strategy. Okay, what form of objectives that we are going to satisfy, how much the competitors spending, okay, how much the competitors they are allocating uh, their budget, okay, so that they can concentrate on the advertising effectively. So taking into account, okay, what will be the strategy of the competitors on the advertisement, okay. So here we try to understand how much money would be available, okay, within the company, okay. So budgeting is a form of activity wherever we do require some sort of expenses and manage that expenses very well. So whether we are in a position to place the advertisement into the medium and how effectively we can place the advertisement into the medium. So here we need to define, okay, that how much money would be available so that we can effectively allocate that advertisement expenditure appropriately and place the advertisement into the different medium effectively, so that we can convince our targeted audience, okay, whatever form of idea that we are looking for. Now setting the advertising budget. While preparing the advertising budget, some particular form of factors should be taken into account. These factors may be vary from industry to industry as well as from media to media. So some in general we will listed out some specific factors and general factors. Okay, all these factors would vary from industry to industry as well as from that media agencies. Stages in the product life cycle, okay, it depends on the preparation of the advertising budget depends on whether the product would be in introduction stage, growth stage, maturity or decline stage. So how much amount of advertising has been required, that primarily depends on the product life cycle. Competition and clutter. So definitely whenever we are doing any form of business, okay, we face generally the form of competition, specifically, okay, what will be the rivalries among the market. So how effectively we can produce our advertisement, okay, generally we will find out some advertisement who are again among the uh, okay, some top brands, okay, and that's why we do require some different clutters and occupy the space, okay, in terms of time and space in the media, so that we can place the advertisement into this different medium. Okay, there is also kind of war against to occupy the market share. Okay, each and every companies are being looking for to occupy a pie of share, okay, so that they can grab an opportunity to sell out their product across that particular segment also. So increasing the market size and market share, that is one of the ingredient activity of all the organizations wherever most of the companies are being focusing on. So your advertising budget would also depends on that. Advertising frequency, how frequently you are advertising into the different media, depending on the total weight, okay, we are calculating how much amount of advertising that we need to perform. If any marketeers, okay, they were decided to select the media across whatever form of vehicles and place the advertisement throughout the year. So what will be the overall advertisement expenditure that has been required, okay, and what will be the overall frequency, okay, how frequently they need to repeat that particular advertisement into the different medium, okay, that will increase the advertising budget, okay. Then product differentiation. Here the companies are being producing different forms of product and that requires some different forms of marketing communication also, okay. For each and every individual product there will be some different advertisement, or majority of companies they are using some group product advertising also. So here if suppose they are producing some different products, okay, so how unique is the product has been supposed to be there, okay, that they need to communicate very effectively. So if suppose they are differently advertising that particular product, in that case the overall advertising budget could increase. Some general factors would be there, okay, that are in relation with the advertising industry, okay, but this form of general factors mostly are strategic in nature. Okay, so that is called as strategic versus tactical budgets. Now that depends on the company, okay, how effectively they are managing that particular advertising budget, okay, and so that they can place the advertising into the medium. Some of them are totally work with the help of research and development, okay, and they are continuously focusing on some identifying some new avenues by means of using some particular technological changes into the industry, okay, and they are occupying that particular marketplace and placing their product and advertisement into that different medium. So there will be strategic versus tactical budgets. So different forms of tools, techniques, or some sort of research has been primarily taken into consideration. Sometimes that will also increase the advertising budget to convince the targeted group of customers. Overall promotional budget. So if suppose the company those are being promoting that particular product by means of using heavy advertising, so in that case that increase your advertising budget also consistently. Some of them are they are consistently placing the advertisement into the medium, so that again increase the advertisement cost. Opportunities to stretch the budget. Sometimes companies are they are uh, in in a view to stretch the advertising budget, okay, and they are in a position to highlight that product into the media. So they are continuously looking for the opportunities to stretch the budget, okay, means what they are being continuously adding some particular aspects that has been relating to, so that they can increase the overall advertising budget and incur that advertising budget on overall advertisements. So they are continuously focusing on how to increase the advertising budget, and they can place the advertisement into the medium. And the final budget, okay, your final budget may be a decision of the top management, wherever if the company thinks fit, okay, they would think about that, okay, and finally they are going to decide. Approaches to advertising budget. Generally we are using two forms of approaches for advertising budget. The first one is called as top down approach, and the second one is called as bottom up approach. Now these both the approaches are being applicable in the industry, but that depends on the organization how effectively they are using these approaches. So let us see these approaches one by one. The first one is called as top down approach. Now in case of top down approach, the management of an organization, generally called as a top executives, okay, the top executive will decide, okay, that particular advertising budget, okay, and it will lead to some other department, it will be allocated in some different department, okay, and finally they will place the advertisement into the medium. Now in this kind of method, okay, here the top executives, okay, they will think that, okay, how much total advertising has been necessary, okay, and they will decide that advertising budget, and that budget would be divided or allocated among the various departments. So here the management of the organization, they will spend some advertising budget limit, and that much amount of advertising expenditure that they can make on advertising. So overall advertising budget is set within the allocation limits. So always remember that in case of top down approach, the management of the company, that they will decide how much will be the total advertising. So in case of top down approach, the advertising objectives and activities are planned according to the set budget. So whenever the management executive that they thinks about what form of advertising activities has need to be conducted, and they will decide the budget, they also think about what will be the advertising objectives and activities that they were planned, and what exactly they are going to achieve, okay, once they will advertising into the different media. This form of approach, that is called as top down approach, is called as, okay, the judgmental approach, okay. The budget is not linked to the objective. In that case, okay, your advertising objective has been something different, but we need to plan our advertising objectives and other related activities. but your budget has not been linked with the objective. This leads to the predetermined budget allocation, okay, which are not related to the advertising objective. This is called as predetermined budget allocation. Here the management of the organization that they will decide how much advertising has been necessary, okay, depending on the advertising objective, okay, it should be allocated to the different departments. So in this figure that you came to know that, okay, the top management that they will decide, okay, how much advertising has been necessary, okay, and they will decide their spending limits, okay, and it should be passed on for the promotional budget for advertising into the different medium by means of using the various departments of the organization. The popular methods which are being related with the top down approaches are: the first one is called as affordable method, arbitrary allocation method, percentage of sales, comparative parity method, and rate of return method. So these are the general methods that we are using in the top down approach, where management of the organization that they will decide how much amount of advertising expenditure has been necessary, and they will allocate that advertising budget accordingly in the several departments. So this is called as what? Top down approach. It is a very popular form of approach most of the company will follow, but nowadays that the things are being changing, and as well as the lots of reactions with respect to customer, it is taken into account, okay, that is called as bottom up approach. That is called as bottom up approach, or we will call it is a build up approach, okay. This is called as a build up approach of advertising budget. Now in case of build up approach, okay, first of all, the budget in which the promotion objectives are set, there is correction, that is called as objectives are set for the task to be performed and the necessary activities to be achieved. The objectives are planned. Now in case of using the bottom up approach, the first of all our promotional objectives are need to be planned, and accordingly we need to think that, okay, what form of advertising activities are to be required, means with respect to some sort of advertising planning, okay, as well as media planning and media scheduling activities are being very essential in case of bottom up approach. Here the total promotion budget is to be approved by the top management. Again here the top management will decide about whether they need to approve that particular advertising budget or not, but primarily they need to think that, okay, what will be the advertising objective, okay, and whatever the other related activities has been planned or not, okay. Depending on the advertising objectives as well as other forms of activity, they will finalize, the top management will finalize the advertising budget. This is also known as build up approach. Here first of all we need to think about our overall advertising objective, and finally thinks about whether to approve the advertising budget or not. So in this way, that is called as a build up approach. Cost of different advertising elements are budgeted. So taken into account the various forms of advertisements and various elements of advertisement, okay, are we require some form of creatives over here, are we require some advertising agencies or any other third party research data with respect to we can formulate our new advertisement campaign. So depending on that, okay, the company will find out, okay, whether they need to increase the advertising budget or not. So the total budget has been approved by the top management. Budget will be allocated on the basis of activities considered essential to accomplish the objective. Now whenever the company will thinks about that, using by means of using our topmost executives, okay, they will identify what form of objectives that they are going to satisfy, okay, and finally that they will decide whether they will consider this advertising budget that should be an essential activity to promote the brands into the different media. Now when we are talking about this bottom up approach, so we do look for this figure over here, okay, in case of our bottom up approaching. So here our promotional objectives are decided and related activities are needed to achieve these objectives are being planned, okay. Maybe it is related with message strategy, media planning, okay, as well as scheduling, okay, and that will define the overall promotion estimates, okay. Here we can calculate the cost of advertisement, okay, by means of using calculating the estimate okay, once the estimates are being finalized by the top management, okay, they will approve the budget. Here in case of our bottom up approach, we are using the different methods. The first method is called as objective and task method, okay, payout planning, quantitative approach method, and experimental approach method. Now these several methods are being very much popular also in case of our bottom up approach. So let us see some important methods of advertising one by one. This is called as advertising budgetary methods. So the first one is called as percentage of sales method. The second one is called as objective and task method. The third one is called as competitive parity method. This is called as match competitors method. The fourth one is affordability method, or it is called as affordable method. The fifth one is called as historical method, and the last one arbitrary allocation method. There are varieties of methods over here, but some important methods and popular methods that we are taken into account for a lecture purpose. So let us see one by one that different methods of advertising. Now this is called as percentage of sales method. Okay, so every year the companies, they are going to calculate their forecasted sales. Okay, if the company is supposed to be new, okay, they are calculating their forecasted sale. Okay, or if the company has been existing, okay, from last few years, so they are calculating on the basis of their past sales. Okay, so that is called as percentage of sales method. So depending on the sales, okay, they will decide how much percentage of sales can be allocated, okay, as an advertising budget. So this method is called as what? Percentage of sales method. Okay, if the company has decided, okay, if suppose the last year the company's sale has been, suppose say 50 crore, okay, so they will decide, okay, 5% of sales, okay, so among which 50, okay, so 2.5 will be allocated to that as an advertising budget. In case of percentage of sales method, we are going to compare the total sales with total advertising or marketing communication budget during the previous time period to compute the percentage. So here in case of percentage of sales method, okay, this year performance and last year performance, okay, in connection with the sales of that respective product or overall company sales has been taken into account, okay, and depending on that, okay, how much percentage sales will be allocated to allocated as an advertising budget, okay, that should be decided by the management of the organization. A company sets the brand advertising budget by simply establishing the budget as a fixed percentage of past and anticipated sales volume. Okay, now when we are talking about the overall sales volume, okay, that sales volume may be in case of suppose say tons, some of the companies that they will consider, okay, in quantity, okay, some of them they are considering in rupees, rupee value. Okay, so it depends on the overall sales volume, okay, and anticipated sales. Depending on the anticipated sales volume, okay, they will decide how much would be the overall advertising budget. If the company has made suppose say 100 crore, okay, out of which suppose say 5% of sales, so 5 crore will be decided, okay, as an percentage of sales as an advertising budget for the company. This is called as a fixed amount of unit product cost is taken as an advertising expenses and multiplied by the number of projected sales unit. Now in case of this percentage sales method, after calculating the percentage sales, okay, how much total advertising has been required depending on per unit cost, okay, behind the advertisement expenses, that is need to be calculated, and finally it should be allocated into the media. Generally this is called as a common method of advertising budget, and it should be suitable for specifically for stable markets, hopefully based on the sales forecast by somebody somewhere or sometime. Okay, generally this kind of percentage sales method, okay, because most of the time we are depending on the forecasted values of sales, So we are taken into account the percentage of sales, okay, and depending on that we are calculating our overall advertising expenditure. The second budgeting methods of advertising is called as objective and task method. Now in this method, first of all we are listing the objectives behind the advertisement and whatever task has been associated with the advertisement. With respect to that each and every task, okay, we need to identify the estimated cost of that related task with respect to advertisement, and finally we are calculating the total advertising budget, specifying what role that they expect advertising to play for a brand, and then set the budget accordingly. So in case of objective task method, okay, whatever objective that individual task would be likely to attain, okay, for which we are going to allocate some amount of money, okay, and finally we are calculating the total advertisement budget. Looks at an objective set for each activity and determine the cost of accomplishing this objective. Now once we are in a position to achieve the objective, okay, by means of considering the whatever form of task that we are allocating for that respective objective, we need to allocate some particular cost of that fulfillment of the cost. Okay, once we are in a position by means of identifying the opportunity in the market by means of using some suppose say creative agencies or advertising media agencies, creative boutiques, okay, so how much charges they are being taking from that particular advertiser. So depending on that the overall objectives we would like to attain and calculating the total cost of that particular advertising. In this way the total of this cost has been taken into account while determining the advertising budget. It is also called as the most common, sensible and defendable advertising budgeting method. So in this way we are going to calculate the advertising budget by means of identifying very carefully, okay, what form of objectives that we are going to achieve by means of using defining the task with respect to that objective and finally allocating the advertising budget to that. So this is called as a defending method of advertising budget. The third one is called as competitive parity method. Now that primarily depends on the competitor strategy, okay. So what exactly the competitors are being doing, okay, that we should have to taken into account, and the individual companies are taking the information from the third party vendors and identifying what form of advertising they are coming from, how much advertising expenditure that last year that the company has made, several things that they are being identifying, okay, by means of using some sort of research and individual service providers, syndicated research data service providers, sets the advertising budget basically by means of following what the competitors are doing. So here what will be the overall competitor strategy that is being taken into account, and how much budget that they were allocated last year or in the previous year, okay, and depending on that, depending on the competitors advertising budget, so they are calculating the percentage of sales but based on the industry average, okay. So in case of competitors parity method, okay, the competitor strategy has to be taken into account and finally they will decide, okay, as considering the industry average they will decide the percentage of sales. If the company has made suppose say 100 crore, okay, and taken into account the competitors budget, out of 100 crore the competitor has made suppose the advertising spend budget as a 10 crore, okay, then they will think that whether according to industry average whether the percentage whether that 10 crore would be affordable to that particular company or not, okay. So then they will decide as per the percentage of sales. Finally they will think maybe they can increase the advertising budget, okay, maybe up to suppose say 12 or 15 crore, or they can reduce the advertising budget up to 8 or 7 crore. That depends on the industry average. So what exactly happening into the industry, okay, that is being taken into account. It relates the amount invested in the advertising to the product share of the market, okay. So what will be the overall market share of the product that has been taken into account while by means of using this competitive parity method. So why does the competitors are making a huge advertising budget? Okay, generally they are looking for the huge market share, and that's why they are increasing the advertising budget. Okay, but whether it is being feasible to the company or not, okay, so that has been also related with the market share of the particular product. So is it feasible for the company to get invest into to increase the advertising budget or not? So here the company will make an assessment over here, and if they things fit that, okay, they will choose that much advertising budget by means of considering the competitive parity method. This will lead to the competitive stability. Okay, here the company should have to match the standard, okay, as at par with the competitors, so they are also not far behind by means of using that particular competitor strategy, and they need to be try to get an advantage, okay, competitive advantage into the market, and simultaneously focus the product to the target market segment, and try to convince the targeted group of customers by means of using effective advertising. So in this way competitive parity method will work. It minimizes the chance of promotional wars. Okay, here continuously in the media, most of the brands, they are going to continuously fight with the advertisements. So by means of using this competitive parity method, we can sometimes reduce the cost of advertisement, okay, and focusing on what customers are being looking for, okay, depending on the industry average, okay, that advertising budget has been calculated, and maybe sometimes it will be very much feasible for the company, because they will allocate only that much advertising budget. So that method would be quite popular also. Now this is called as an affordability method, okay, or affordable method. Now whatever that the company may thinks fit, okay, they will allocate that much advertising budget for advertising purposes. It is based on what company can afford. So finally there is a limitation to the company. Okay, companies are having some limited resources, and therefore they depend, the advertising budget depends on what form of resources that they are allocating for advertising. So whatever has been left over, okay, after meeting all the financial difficulties, okay, that should be allocated in case of affordability method, as an to meet the advertising budget. Only the funds are being remain after budgeting for everything else are spent on advertising. So whatever has been remain, then the remaining funds will be get allocated for the advertising budget. Companies who use this don't value research advertising very much. Now companies those are using this form of affordability method, they will not consider, okay, advertising is a very good form of discipline. Okay, they just think that, okay, we need to do the advertising, okay, so they will allocate that advertising budget, and they are conducting the advertising activity. They do not think that advertising is a creative discipline. Here we should have to create the advertising to meet some advertising objectives, okay, and allocating the task accordingly. So they do not think over here. It primarily depends on the top management. However, the affordability and competitive considerations influence the budgeting decisions of all the companies. Now it finally depends on how much the company can affordable to allocate that particular budget. If the company requires to, suppose the advertising expenditure of, suppose say 10 crore, 20 crore, or something even else, okay, majority of companies like HUL, they were having, okay, more than suppose say 20,000 crore advertising expenditure, okay. So how does that these companies think over to increase the advertising budget, okay. So whether it should be affordable to that particular company or not, okay, or they would think about some competitive consideration. If they want to remain into the market, they need to do some heavy advertising into the market. It is one of the most unsophisticated and improvised firm, okay. So this form of method is called as unsophisticated method of advertising budget, okay. Here more and more sophisticated techniques are required, because we need to satisfy the a large number of customers. No consideration is given to the advertising objectives and goals. So in case of affordability method, we do not consider what form of advertising objectives we want to achieve. Okay, even whatever advertising objectives and connected goals, okay, say for example AIDA models and other Dagmar approach or other hierarchy of fixed model would not be considered in case of affordability method. Companies those who thinks fit to do an advertising, and if their financials are allowed to publicize that particular product using the advertisement, they will define their advertising budget accordingly, and they will conduct the advertising activities. This is called as a most common method, okay, for advertising budget. Particularly most of the small business firms, okay, they will conduct they will prepare their advertising budget using this affordability method. Even the primary focus in case of most of these smaller business firms is on new product development and prototypes, so they will not consider feasible to make heavy expenses on advertising, okay, and they will reduce their advertising budget. Now this is called as historical method. That historical method may be called as in this case we are considering the past performance specifically based on the last year with the percentage increase, okay, how much the advertising budget was there in the last year. If the last year the company has suppose say 10 crore advertising expenditure, okay, depending on last year performances, okay, and what sort of advertising activities that they were done, so whether they will increase the advertising expenditure or decrease the advertising expenditure depending on that historical data, okay, they will decide whether they will things fit. Finally again it is depends on the top management. Nothing to do with the advertising objective. Here we don't think about our advertising objective. Either we need to increase the advertising budget or reduce the advertising budget, okay. In general we are increasing the advertising budget. It is called as again the most common budgeting method, okay, depending on the past performance, okay. Generally suppose say 2% 5% maybe increase every year the advertising budget. Most of the companies are using these practices. Now this is the last method, that is called as arbitrary allocation method, okay. Now in this method the budget has been allocated on the basis of what is felt necessary by the decision maker. Again here the top management will decide, okay, how much would be the advertising expenditure, and total advertising budget has been required to meet that advertising expenditure. Here there is a lack of systematic thinking with respect to our advertising objectives and whatever form of task has been allocated in meeting this advertising objective. This is not called as a very good form of sophisticated method of advertising, okay. Here there is no relationship with the advertising objectives and other related tasks, and managers believe that some amount must be spent on advertising, and we need to pick up the figure, okay, maybe we need to increase the advertising or to decrease the advertising. So arbitrarily the top management will decide, okay, and they will consider we need to conduct the advertising, okay, because many of the competitors as well as manufacturers are they are spending heavily on advertising, and therefore they will decide we need to spend suppose say 5 crore or 10 crore on by means of using this arbitrary method of allocation. So randomly that they will think, okay, and there is no effective planning has been there, okay, by means of using the top management. So that is all about the advertising budget and advertising different methods of advertising. So that's all for our today's session. Thank you very much.